Ben Johnson talks about wanting a team full of playmakers. And the question is can the Bears put that team together this offseason? And how far along are they already in that class? Plus, Ryan Poles talks about the position that he feels is the hardest to evaluate. We're going to get to all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today, guys. I had to re-record this intro because it just came down that Trey Smith has actually been franchise tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs, which means that he is no longer an option there for the Chicago Bears in the free agency market. Later in the episode, I will talk a little bit about Trey Smith, so just know that was recorded before this news came down. Luckily, that news came out before I released the episode, so I'm able to go ahead and record this. But just so everyone knows, the Kansas City Chiefs are now officially franchise tagging Trey Smith, which means that he is no longer option for the Chicago Bears. This is huge money when it comes down to it. The Kansas City Chiefs make a big decision as far as what they're going to do with that money. That means they're going to have to free up money other places to be able to hold on to them. And the Bears are going to have to pivot. Now, the benefit of this is that there's so many offensive linemen that are out there available for the Chicago Bears that they can still go out and try to get to definitely shore up this offensive line. That's why in this episode, crazily enough, I talk about the fact that this is not a Trey Smith or bust offseason in which it comes to upgrading this offensive line. So that's what it comes down to for the Bears, right? They're going to get to look at some other things. They're still going to have more than enough players and opportunities and targets out there to upgrade this offensive line in a meaningful way. But as it stands right now, Trey Smith is getting franchise tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs, which means he's going to stay on that on a 1-year, fully guaranteed deal. And they'll see what the future holds for that when it comes to the Chicago Bears. But with that said, let's go into the rest of the show. Know that the draft combine is underway, and as the Bears are meeting with players and setting up meetings and things like that, it's all about building the proper team around what Ben Johnson has here, right? And him already using the players that we already have here as well, right? And so when speaking with reporters, Ben Johnson talked about, he said this, playmakers all over the roster, right? He also said this, but at the same time, we know complementary football wins in this league. So, wanting playmakers on both sides of the ball, right? And understanding that when you have players that simply make plays, that is what makes things easier, right? When you have guys that just go out there and get it done. You need players that also fit together, right? And I think that also extends to the coaching staff, right? When you look at how Ben Johnson built this complementary coaching staff, you want that to also reflect on the roster. You want those pieces that you bring in, that you have, to all be complementary of each other. So Ben Johnson has the right mindset. And having a team full of playmakers, especially in the offense and defensive side for that matter, right? That's why a guy like Bowen I have on my draft board. But, it comes down to having the right guys at the right position that not only fit together, but are just going to do whatever it takes to make plays. You want guys that are going to sacrifice for one another. That is one of the most important things, period. And having those guys, right? And that's at every level. Right now, of course, playmaking is different for each position. And we've already gone a bit of the way there. You got to ask us, how many playmakers do we already have on this team? Caleb, 1. DJ Moore, another 1, right? Romo Dunze, 1. Cole Kmet, another 1, right? And DeAndre Swift can make some plays, but again, we want to see what they're going to do in the running back, in that room to fill out that room a little bit more. But then you need playmakers on that offensive line. You need guys who are going to help make the offensive line. For so long with the Bears, right, we've had an offensive line that we had to hope was just going to be able to stand up so the playmakers can get to work. You need playmakers on that offensive line as well. We already know with defense. Jalen Johnson is a playmaker. Tyreek Stevenson, despite where the up and down season last year, he's been a playmaker. We need that from him. Kyler Gordon's definitely a playmaker. Montez Sweat, playmaker. Javon Dexter's shown himself to be one. So we're already going a bit of the way there. We need to have the right coaching that can refine that playmaking ability because we just didn't have the right coaching there last season, right? And so in working and growing through those things, Ben Johnson has the right mindset. The question is how many playmakers are they going to be able to make even better and bring into this team this upcoming year? And that's why having the right coaching staff, right? I'm somebody that I always talk about the importance of coaching, because coaching is what can take a team that has some decent pieces together and make those guys flow together more seamlessly. And then you're getting a better sum of the parts. And that's what this all comes down to, is getting the right guys both on the field and on the sidelines, the guys that coach those, to get the most out of the play that you want here from this team. And let's hope that we're going to finally start seeing a little bit of that for the Chicago Bears. But one of the playmakers that's been talked about coming to the Bears is Trey Smith. And the Chiefs GM talked a little bit about Trey Smith, in which he said this, that he's very optimistic that KC can keep Trey Smith, and said we've already had some good dialogue with him. Now, of course he's going to say something like that, right? I've seen reactions to this like, oh my God, are the Bears going to be able to get Trey Smith? Is he not going to actually be on the board? And if the Kansas City Chiefs find a way to clear enough cap, right? Because right now they don't have the money to keep him. Now, if Travis Kelce does retire, some things could change there. There's always a way to create more money if you really want to create it. But even if he's not there, and that's why I've said before, right? Me and Steve-O talked about it. Me and Bobby have talked about it. This isn't a Trey Smith or bust type of mentality in improving this offensive line. There are playmakers out there that you can get. We've talked about Will Fries, right? He's another guy that I would pivot right towards to try to bring in here. Mekhi Becton, still with Dahlman, right? And then throughout the draft, there's guys. Mimbao is a guy that I love potentially in this draft, right? So there's still a way that you can drastically improve this offensive line. I don't want it to be, and I've said this many times before, don't let the national media conversation, hell, don't even let what we talk about here on Chicago Bears Central, for that matter, become your opinion, right? Of course, let it color your opinion. Let it make you go and do some research, inform yourself, all those type of things. That's all fine and good and dandy, right? But when it comes down to it, like, you don't start thinking that if the Bears can't get Trey Smith, it's all doom and gloom for improving this offensive line. No, there's not. He's just the biggest name that's going to get paid the most, right? And he's a rare name that becomes available in free agency at his years and experience and the success that he's had. But that doesn't mean that it comes down to just Trey Smith to be able to improve this offensive line or not. That's just not the reality of it. So, you got to hope that the Bears aren't putting all their eggs in one basket, and neither should fans, right? It's not just about Trey Smith, and if the Bears can't get him, that means it's all doom and gloom for improving the offensive line, because it's not. This is a very talented. That's why I've tried to do a really good job myself here and highlighting the fact that this is one of the off seasons that there is a ton of talent at the positions that we need. The Bears just got to go out there and be aggressive about getting it, right? And so we'll see if that. Ryan Poles has already talked about having a vision and then being aggressive with that vision, right? And saying that there are players that hit the boxes that they need, right? And once you see those guys, you go out there and get them. There are still a lot of players that check a lot of the boxes that the Chicago Bears need checked here. It is what it is when it comes down to it. So, like I said, I just don't want my Bears fans to think that it's Trey Smith or not. I've already seen some of the guys based off that comment from the Chiefs GM that's like, oh my God, are we actually going to be able to improve this offensive line if we can't get Trey Smith? Yes, you still can. And as much as people, like, I get it. We've bargain been shot for far too long on the offensive line. But don't think that you got to spend record-setting money at a position to improve the offensive line. You just don't have to do that, not at one player. Now, it'd be great to get him. I'm not knocking the Bears if they can go out there and get Trey Smith. That's not at all what's happening here. I would love for them to be able to go out and get him, because I do think he has that level of talent that we need to make the improvements here on the offensive line. But there are tons of guys you can go out there and get, man. And we'll see what the future is going to hold for that. And, it's definitely the position that we need to focus on. No doubt about that. But I think that Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson are going to sit down, and Ian Cunningham, they're going to identify as the guys that fit their scheme, that fit the style that they want to play. And, they'll figure it out from that, right? So we'll see what happens with that as well. But one of the positions that I've talked a lot about, not many people are making as much of a focus on it as I have in the pundit world, right? But I think when you look at it as well, like Ryan Poles has talked about positions that are difficult to really kind of gauge and to evaluate for whatever it's worth. And one would think that, is he going to say that, offensive line, with his inability to get offensive linemen and things in here like that? That definitely could be one. But he said this: there's just not a lot of touch points. Safeties, their involvement is sporadic. If you just look at production, the ball kind of find them. There's a little luck there. It gets even harder when there's guys that maybe they don't have traits that they have to work. They have a lot of luck. It takes a lot of tape to get to the bottom of it. And so here's the thing, right? Safeties are a very difficult position to like, because when it works, it's great, right? When you have a safety that's a ball hawk, things like that, it's easy to look at those guys and say, that's a talented guy, right? But then you got to think, like, are they throwing to them? Are they going deep enough? Like, how are you using them in other places, right? And that's why watching tape, and I always highlight watching tape, not just highlights, y'all, right? But a guy like Billy Bowman Jr., who I'm going to keep hoping that the Chicago Bears can get in this draft, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be on their board, but it's a guy that I would love for the Bears to take a look at. But, that evaluation of safeties is difficult, right? And it's good that Ryan Poles understands that, but he understands, hey, you got to watch a lot of tape on safeties. But that also tells me that maybe Ryan Poles agrees with me in the fact that in the way that the safety has to be addressed, the fact that he's asked about what evaluating, he brings up safety. So, he also says this. I think anyone that has played a position probably knows a little details that they can pick up or evaluate better. If it's interior guys talking about the offensive line, it's mental quickness that they have to have their eyes and see how to adjust. You can almost feel the reps that you've taken, but that's why you rely on your scouts who have different expertise in those areas. And listen, when it comes to scouts of offensive line, Ryan Poles, I need you to trust your scouts because your personal evaluation of the offensive lineman so far hasn't necessarily been the best, my boy. So you need to kind of focus a little bit on those other things. But here's the thing, I think, right, is that with going out and getting, and that's why, getting veteran offensive linemen, I think is going to be important for this Bears team because there's more of a track record of success. And maybe Ryan Poles is just somebody that projecting how a player is going to go from college to the pros, maybe he's just not as good as that. Now, we got Darnell Wright. He's been pretty good for us. Kieran Amagaje hasn't really shown us too much of anything. Braxton Jones has not really progressed, but he's been solid in certain areas. So, there's the judgment to be made there when it comes to Ryan Poles, but that's why you have scouts, right? It's not just about Ryan Poles' evaluation. It's also about the information that the scouts, who their job is all season long, is to find the next great players at positions and to give that packet of information over to the guys who are going to make the decision to draft. Now, there's a complete world in which the scouts actually give the correct information, and maybe Ryan Poles gets a little bit too creative in going a different route. But I think overall, you want Ryan Poles. He needs to trust the scouts because his own personal evaluation of the offensive line hasn't necessarily been the best here over the last couple of years. So let's hope that he's trusting the scouts. And, when offensive linemen that we draft, we start seeing more Darnell Wrights than Kieran Amagaje. And again, Kieran could end up turning out fine, especially with us having better coaches here now. But in that rookie season, Kieran Amagaje just looked like he was completely in over his head. But, we'll see what the future holds for that one. But with that said, I want to talk about one of the draft prospects here for the Chicago Bears, and that is Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, right? He's mocked so far to go in either the end of the first round or into round 2, and he could be somebody on the board for the Chicago Bears there, depending on what they decide to do. Now, this is a guy with Texas A&M. He's had tons of success, right? But a lot of people look at him as a risk, right? 4.5 sacks in 3 seasons at Texas A&M, which is a huge alarming there, right? But when you look at the speed and the power that he has and the pass rush moves, people do think that he's going to have an ability to get to the quarterback. And he's actually talked recently, and he compared himself to Julius Peppers. Now, I don't think any of us had Stewart on our mock drafts. Now, that could change based off what happens in the in the draft combine. I don't necessarily see him. There's just guys I like better at the position, much less his production questions there. But Shamar Stewart is the type of pick that we've seen Ryan Poles make in different positions before, right? Making a kind of risky move that has some upside if a guy that hasn't necessarily had the counting stats to kind of back up the way that somebody views him. Now, again, much like I said in the last one, trust your scouts. That's what it has to come down to is please, Ryan Poles, by any stretch of the imagination, trust your damn scouts to get this thing done and solved and figured out, right? Don't think that you can do it all and figure out, and don't try to get too creative, right? That's the thing. Like, I want to see a draft in which we look at these guys and they're all productive, right? I get it. You're trying to find upside in the draft, and sometimes you take a guy that may not be productive as much in year 1, and you're looking more at year 2, year 3, and what they can be down the line, right? But I think You don't want to get right. As of right now, we need to continue laying a foundation. And you can't really lay a solid foundation on guys if you continue just doing too much of, well, we think this guy to turn into that. I want to see more guys of, hey, this is who they can be year one. We'll take that and try to build off of that. Not guys that is like, hey, we may not get much out of them in year one. We'll get them out there. We'll see how they develop, and then we'll come up with a development plan. That's great when you already have a solid base. The Bears are trying to still build this thing on out. So in my opinion, I like to see a little bit just trepidation there on going too high upside with some of these picks, in my personal opinion. But, we'll see what happens there. Pose is going to be Pose. He's going to do things that he does when it comes down to it. But I think that you're going to see a nice mix of free agency and the draft in this year's offseason. I think that's the right route to go. Jesus Christ, what happened there? The right route to go, if I could talk correctly, in a lot of these cases, right? And we'll see what the future does hold for the Chicago Bears. But with one thing, is in regards to the Bears reportedly, in the interest in Myles Garrett and things like that, right? Courtney Cronin, shout out to Courtney Cronin, said this. But should that change, Chicago may be one of the few that could actually pull off a trade for the defensive end who totaled 83 pressures, 14 and a half sacks, 28 quarterback hits, and a pressure rate of 18.4% in 2024. The Bears own a top 10 pick and have 2 second-round selections, including Carolina's number 39 pick. So that's Courtney Cronin making a case for the Bears to actually be a suitor for Myles Garrett. And here's what I've continued to say, and my favor on that has not wavered. I understand the Myles Garrett trade rumor is not going to go away. It just isn't. Until he's actually traded to a different team, the season starts, and he's not a Chicago Bear, whatever it is. But I ultimately look at it and say, can you really do that right now, right? Is that where a place of even trading a first-round pick, is that where you can really be right now to get it done, right? And we'll see what the future holds there, man. I'll say this. I've talked about a lot that what Myles Garrett could bring if he's on the field for the Bears. That's not the question. But you got to ask yourself, are you then again doing something to where you haven't shored up other positions? Now, if you go out and get 2 or 3 veteran offensive linemen in this draft, and you look at it and say, we can get some other offensive linemen that are starter caliber in the second round, we're open to trade this first-round pick. We've saved some money. Let's bring in Myles Garrett so we can have that defensive end situation shoring up. You can make a case for that, right? There's rationale that can go into that. I just have my doubts and my concerns on if this is the right time to make a move like that. That's just where I sit, man. I'm not expecting everybody to agree. I know a lot of people look at the names and they want that name, and I understand it. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing on you guys. But I just want the Bears to be cautious of going all in too quickly, right? And then removing yourself from the ability to shore up something future-wise if you need to do it, right? So, that's just my concern there. But overall, I want to see this team improve. And if that means improvement through bringing in somebody like Myles Garrett, then do it. We'll just see what happens there, man. But we'll see what happens. You guys can let me know what you guys think on that. But we're going to get into a voicemail from my boy Darius, and then I'll catch you guys on the other side of this.
What's going on, guys? Darius from Dallas. Just wanted to give my thoughts on Hayes' first mock draft. I'm sure he'll probably drop another 1 or 2. But yeah, man, you threw us a wrench there with the trade back. I like that option for sure. That's something I feel like, other than you, I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about. So that's definitely a unique perspective there, man. You basically had it set up to where we're fixing 2 of those interior lineman spots in the draft. And then you're saying we need to go get a veteran center. So we're only really spending max money. This is assuming the Trey Smith thing don't work out. We're only spending max money on the center. So that frees up a lot of that $80 million that we got to maybe go get a Javon Holland, or to go get a Myles Garrett, or to go get a premier defensive guy. Because I think the way we have to look at the offensive line is we're going to have to look at it like a 2-stage process or a 2-season process, man. If we can just fix the interior this year, all right, and we roll in the next season and we know that our only weakness on the offensive line is Braxton Jones, that's a problem. That's a problem we can easily solve. So just get the interior right for now, and let's work on that. Just work on making it a Pro Bowl offensive line from left tackle, right tackle going into 2026 season. All right. So I do like that. I like of course I like the Judkins. We got a lot of running backs in this draft, man, that we can get. And I think whoever we get, we're going to get a good one. But I think the thing that I like the most is that you're solving our interior issue. And I do like that big old boy out of Missouri. I think he's going to be more of he played right tackle for the most part. But I think that he's going to be I think he could be probably like an elite level, right guard. So that's a cheap way, to solve that problem with premium talent without overpaying. So I like what you did there, man. And, the way that you set that draft up, it gives us a lot of cap space, that we can still work with and just get some premium players in there with that cap space, man. So, hey, hell of a job. And, I'm looking forward to the other ones that y'all got. One of the sleeper guys that, I feel like we should look at for that Keenan Allen replacement is that Will Shepherd kid. I think he played for Colorado. Dude's been tearing it up in the Senior Bowl. They say he's going to run a 4.3 in the draft. Excellent route runner. Let me know what y'all think, man. Text us up there now.
All right, Darius, completely. Hey, thank you for checking out my mock draft. And yeah, I mean, listen, the Bears, especially now with the Trey Smith news, that the Bears have a lot of other opportunities to upgrade the offensive line. Now, we'll see what they do there as far as like with my mock, if they go that direction. I agree with you on Mbao from Missouri. I think that he, somebody made a comment after that mock draft was like, I don't think he can be a starter. I'm like, you're tripping if you don't think he can be a starter. But I think overall it just goes back to the fact that this is a deep draft. There's a lot of sleepers here, so to say, in it, and we'll find out what the Bears can get done here. But the Bears sit in a very good position to be able to get some things done. And if they do in free agency attack certain positions and get some starters in there, it frees up really what they can do with the 10th pick. And trading back could be an option. As I sit in there, even trading up can be an option. Right now, I'm looking at trading back in my first initial mock. Now with Trey Smith gone, and we'll see what happens in the rest of the combine, there may be some opportunities for me to kind of, in the next version of the mock, do some other things. But Darius, as always, thank you for your view. Thank you for your support. We appreciate you. And yeah, we'll see, man. The Bears got some opportunity, and if they are able to attack the draft like I think and a lot of other people think, they can make a big splash, a considerable splash in free agency. So we'll see what the future does hold there. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.